Hello, I'm Bernard Hickey from interest.co.nz and welcome to a special economic weather report brought to you in association with Bank of New Zealand. Today we look at comments from Prime Minister John Key about how the government will deal with the Christchurch earthquake. Remember, the cost of the two earthquakes from September 4 and February 22 is estimated at around $20 billion in total. The government thinks that about $15 billion of that will be covered by the EQC, by reinsurance and by private insurance. About $5 billion will have to be found from somewhere within the government's coffers to pay to rebuild roads and infrastructure in particular. So the question is for the government, how do they pay for this extra spending? Should they increase debt? Should they impose some sort of earthquake levy? Or should they cut spending elsewhere in the government? Or should they do a combination of all three of those things? Well, first, Bill English, late yesterday, and now John Key have started talking publicly about that combination, that calculation of how the government will pay. Everything's up in the air as the government finalises its budget for May the 19th. And they're looking at two areas in particular: interest-free student loans and working for families, widely described as two pieces of middle-class welfare. Now, John Key has essentially ruled out in an interview with Leighton Smith on Newstalk ZB this morning the idea of changing interest-free student loans, but he has talked at length about changing working for families. He said that there are some people on very high incomes, he thinks, perhaps over $100,000 with 3 or 4 kids, who are still receiving working for families. He says those people have received, or should receive, income tax cuts that were doled out in October last year. And he's suggesting that maybe working for families would be changed for those people. He also made some interesting comments about the cost of not just the earthquake, but the economic recession for the government. He pointed out that the Treasury has advised him that the size of the economy would have reduced in size by $15 billion between the middle of last year and the middle of this coming year, simply because of economic contraction. Remember, we saw a contraction in the September quarter, contraction in the December quarter is likely, and certainly the March quarter now with the earthquake, we're looking at potentially 3 quarters of the contraction. He says with that $15 billion reduction in GDP, that of course is going to make the government's accounts look tougher as well. The problem here that the government is grappling with is that New Zealand's productivity, its actual ability to produce, has been impaired for almost 10 years now. When you look at our real GDP per capita, so adjusting for inflation and the number of people who have come in, our ability to earn wages, real wages, that has actually dropped since 2004. So why is it that some people felt wealthier over the last 10 years? Well, to be frank, I think we've disguised that growth in wealth. We've done it through a couple of ways. Firstly, we've borrowed money from offshore through our houses, and we've increased our foreign debt. So we spent that money on whatever it was to make ourselves think we were richer. We thought we were richer too because house prices had risen and our equity had risen. We drew down on that equity. It wasn't based on actual productivity growth. And then towards the end of that period, we helped disguise the falls in our real per capita income by various middle-class welfare measures, including interest-free student loans and working for families. What I think we have now here with the shock of the earthquake is the realisation by the government, and I think many voters, that a day of reckoning has approached, where we face up to the fact that over the last decade, New Zealanders' productivity, our ability to earn real sustainable wages, has been impaired. We actually need to have a lower standard of living and to rebuild not just Christchurch, but the economy overall. That's my personal view, of course. That was another economic weather report brought to you in association with Bank of New Zealand.